it's an exciting time, and it's historic, right? This only happens, usually every 15, 20 years or so. And so we got a new shepherd coming, and Bishop Leo's from Montreal originally. And so, yeah, I've been spending a lot of time talking to him in the last few weeks, because part of my job is not only the media side of it, but our office is organizing the installation. He's also someone who's a new bishop. He's a young guy. He hasn't been a bishop very long, and he's from Quebec.
When he gets installed at St. Michael's Basilica, will there be an event that's open to the public?
It'll all be live streamed. Salt and Light Catholic Television will televise it. Mainstream media will likely pick up portions of it. And, we're also looking at right now, can we accommodate people who may want to be outside, putting up a screen or getting audio, things like that. So the new bishop will also do a series of regional masses because of the geography of the Archdiocese being so vast. So within about the first month of his time here, he'll do a mass of welcome in the east, so likely in Pickering area, west probably Mississauga, in the north in Barrie, and then one in the we call the central region, Toronto proper, and North York probably.
Can we expect Bishop Leo to be a more progressive bishop?
I mean, in talking to him just in the last few weeks, his focus is on serving the people. And, that's something that Pope Francis has often talked about, is the bishops need to have the smell of the sheep. They're caring for the flock, but they need to be connected to the flock. They can't be disconnected, living in the corporate, office and, at the cathedral, and isolated from people. So I think, at least the impression I get, is he wants to be connected to people. He wants to meet them where they are. And that includes, the people who come to Mass regularly, and then people who, are not engaged in their faith. And so he's going to be, he's the bishop for everyone.
So you did just mention people that are maybe not as engaged in their faith as they once were. How can the Archdiocese moving forward re-engage some of those Catholics who maybe have strayed away from the faith?
I think it's Cardinal Collins, who's the outgoing Archbishop, always talked about, you want to build a bridge, touch the heart, and then share your view, share your teaching, your belief. And so sometimes there's a tendency for some people to want to give the teaching of the faith and telling people why, you're not living a good life, and you're going to hell if you don't do these three things. And they start with the teaching instead of building the bridge and touching the heart. And so I think Bishop Leo is going to be someone who continues to build on that. It's building friendships and having dialogue. And I think that's what we need to do. We have to remember that, it's a busy world we live in, and people have all sorts of reasons why they can say, I'm too busy to go to church, or too busy to pray, or have that as an important part of my life. But there's moments. What are the moments where we meet in that journey of life to say, okay, if you encounter someone who has a positive experience and feels affirmed with someone who's a faith leader, or someone who's a person of faith, that can make a huge impact. I always think of like a wedding or a funeral or a baptism, things that people would come to that maybe they normally wouldn't attend church, but they're coming to a wedding or a funeral. And I always think those are opportunities for us to, show what the church can be for people. And if they have a really positive experience just for that 45 minutes they're at a wedding, then they might go back and say, you know what, maybe I'm going to give this another try. Or if I haven't been to church before, I'm going to check this out. And so it's the simple things.
Cardinal Collins, he specialized in the book of Revelation. Do we know what Bishop Leo, if he has a favorite book of the Bible?
I haven't asked him that yet, but I mean, he's someone who has had an interesting journey. He's someone who's been a pastor at the local parish, but he's also been a teacher at seminaries for people who are studying for the priesthood, religious life. He's traveled in different parts of the world in the diplomatic corps. So he's worked in different parts of the world in what they call the nunciature's office, basically the ambassadors from the Vatican to different countries. And then he was the general secretary for the Canadian bishops. So he worked in a more administrative capacity, coordinating activities of the Canadian bishops. He's also someone who has a real, they call it a Marian charism, and so a love of Mary, Mother of Jesus. And so in the conversations I've had with him, that's been, let's say a Hail Mary before we start embarking on this huge project in front of us. So focused in prayer, very Marian focus there. So I think that'll be a beautiful blessing for us, and then we're going to learn about him, and he's going to learn about us. But I mean, to become a bishop, usually you're a pretty smart cookie and someone who's done some really great things in your life, but also he's a very humble guy. He's not a I'm the bishop, you're not the bishop, and it's very warm and thoughtful. So my first impressions have been of a really thoughtful person, and I think as a shepherd, that's what we want, that's what we need.
Are some areas do you think the church can improve in the coming years?
The stereotype that people have the church about the Catholic Church is it's just about a set of rules. These are the do's and don'ts. You can't do this and you can do this, you can't do this, and more focused on what you can't do. And I think what we need to show people is that it's not about a set of rules. It's about setting the bar high for ourselves and how we treat other people and how we look at our own life. But to say that there is an opportunity there for everyone to be welcome and to be valued in our community. And I think that's always something we can improve on and work on.
There is a hot topic in the church right now as well, the traditional Latin Mass.
Hmm.
So, how are some of the restrictions that were announced? Like, how is that going to practically happen in the Archdiocese of Toronto?
It's an interesting one because in the Archdiocese of Toronto, actually, we do have, I think it's 2 or 3 parishes where they do have the Latin Mass celebrated, and it's kind of been, I won't say regulated, but it's been approved, and it's been there's dialogue there with those who are fans of celebrating more traditional Latin Mass. I think what's happened in some parts of the world is it's almost like the local bishop has been saying, "Oh, I don't want you to do this," and they're saying, "Oh, you don't want us to do this, it's going to embolden us even more, we're going to want to do this." And it's almost like underground, this kind of thing, where for us, I think the conversation has been very open, and there's been a place available for people who feel connected to the traditional rite. And so I'm not sure, I'm not a canon church lawyer, but it feels to me like there won't be a huge impact in the way things look locally here. I think what the church and what the Vatican was trying to do with this is we always want to be in communion and together as part of a family. And so it's the idea of, when you're with your own family and you say, we want to have dinner around the table together. And then someone says, no, I want to have dinner downstairs. And somebody else says, I want to be in my room. And then we're separated from one another. And so it's trying to come together and say, let's recognize that the way that people, their spirituality may be a little different in terms of some people like a more charismatic expression of their faith. Some people like a more kind of quiet and personal expression of faith. Some people like something more traditional. Some people like more modern. So there's room in the family for everyone. It's just trying to find a way to do it where it's not combative, where it's actually not trying to say we're better than you and the way you do it is wrong, and the way, so it's trying to work together on that. And you see that, I mean, we have 225 Catholic churches in the Archdiocese. You go to mass is mass, so we follow the same rite, but the music is a little different here, and here they've got a choir, and here they've got one cantor, here they've got a guitar, here they've got a full wind orchestra to help with that. So it can vary, but I think the idea is to try to be unified as much as possible, and not to divide, and to try to recognize that the divisions from within are sometimes the ones that are the most painful, and it's not helpful for anyone to kind of go down that road.
What is your favorite book of the Bible?
You know what? It's funny. There's a reading from the Corinthians that is it's just a line. I was talking to my daughter about it the other night, and it's, you usually hear it on Ash Wednesday, which very recently we've just moved into Lent, and that's be ambassadors for Christ. And I always love hearing that reading. It's given usually only once a year, but the idea of all of us being ambassadors for our faith. And in the people we meet, we often talk about being the hands and face of Jesus. When we meet people on the street who are angry or upset or homeless, what would Jesus do when they encounter these folks? So I like, and I also like the parables, right, which we hear in the Gospels of the Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. So the stories that Jesus used to kind of apply um, you know, messages and principles to, did you hear about the rich fool, this person who wasted all of the talents that they had, those kinds of things. I like those practical stories that connect me with my own life. So yeah, the Corinthians one is just the one that always sticks to me on a quote, but the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are like where our faith comes alive. I love hearing those stories.